an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend Season 2, Episode 5. Why is Josh's ex-girlfriend eating carbs? In this episode, Rebecca really wants to bond with Valencia. And I also want her to bond with Valencia. I said last time I really wanted this to happen, and it looks like it's happening, and I'm so excited. Also, Paula starts law school and makes a new friend. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. First of all, thank you very much to Megan for commissioning this episode. What's up, Megan? Guys, this is everything I wanted. I just didn't know how this could possibly happen. And it's one of those things where I'm like, would this work? Probably not really. But I kind of wonder, Valencia is somebody who doesn't have a lot of female friends, as we've seen. And I could see somebody like Rebecca wearing her down a little bit. It's a combination because Rebecca is so aggressively trying to, it's a selfishness that drives it, but there's also there's a little bit of hero worship still there, with the God, guys, I still think that the song about how she kind of wants to make a dress out of Valencia's skin is one of my top 5. And that's still very much at play. And Valencia is somebody who really needs validation constantly. So being friends with somebody who gives that to you makes sense, right? It just does. And I'm also somebody who needs validation all the time. It's not a healthy place to be. I'm starting to grow out of that, but it takes a long time, and it takes being aware that that's what you're doing too. And I'm not really confident Valencia understands that that's what's happening for her. But anyway, yeah. So we start the episode with this god awful caveman scene. Guys, I swear to God, I started this up. What I do a lot with this show is I'll finish recording on it. And I have a little bit of a break before my next recording, usually when I'm doing the Spoil Me's. And what I'll do is finish an episode and then finish recording on it. And then I'll start the next one and let it play the first 10 minutes while I'm prepping for the next episode. And I started this one, and I suffered such terrible secondhand embarrassment from this cave scene that I turned it off because I just couldn't take it. It's just, oh my God, them doing these sort of nonsense talk, the wigs that they've got on. Valencia, despite the fact that it's caveman times, is still over here grooming herself using a pumice stone. And what it is Rebecca wanting to get Valencia to allow her to pick nits out of her hair. And I love it because it's sort of how this opening scene is actually not entirely different. Wait a minute. What? Erica says, did you figure out the subtitles? No. What are you talking about? Are there subtitles? There's no subtitles when I'm watching the scene. I have the subtitles on. Oh, is this one of those things where if you put the subtitles on, it takes the subtitles off during that scene? I've heard that can happen with certain apps. Fuck. Okay, hold on. I'm backing this up a little bit, and I'm going to turn the subtitles off and see what happens. Let's see. Oh, fuck. Yep. Here they are. Guys, I watched this with no idea. If you turn the subtitles off, it will appear. Guys, oh, I'm so mad at Netflix right now. Thanks for killing that Sabretooth last night, dude. Oh my God. So, okay. Hey girl, what you up to? Get out of my face, fatty. Oh my God. Guys, I can't believe that I missed this. I watched this episode twice. Actually, no, I watched it like 3 times, I think, by now, because it's been a month. I'm exfoliating. I know it's awkward because we both mated with the alpha male who rejected both of us. Yeah, it is. But I have an idea to make things right. Let me eat the lice off you. Okay, long pause. The ones I can't reach, because I got some gnarly ones near my ears. Done. I mean, she should be able to reach those, but nevertheless, that's the end of the scene. Okay, wow. That's so much worse. Well, there it is. Thank you for alerting me, Erica, because I did not know about that. But anyway, yeah, what I was saying was like that this is pretty close to how the entire episode goes, where she approaches Valencia. Valencia at first rejects her. She kind of like talks to her and wears her down. And Valencia finally sort of gives in and at first seems weird about it, but then gradually begins to seem to enjoy herself. And yeah, it's all from this book that it's called Blood and Lice. And she's explaining this to Heather. I'm so excited about the fact that Heather is going to be more a part of this show. So yeah, she's talking about how women used the grooming as a bonding technique. And that's what Valencia and I need to do. We need to heal and bond, and we need to do it together. And Heather, understandably, is just like, dude, I don't know how to tell you this, but Valencia is super duper not interested. She hates you. She grabbed her now donut and her later donut and stomped out. I love that. Her now donut and her later donut. It's a woman who's thinking ahead. It's a woman with a future. And Rebecca says she doesn't actually hate me. She thinks she hates me. But I need to find a way to connect with her. And if I can do that, we'll be able to, move past this and maybe be friends. And Heather says, you just want to be friends with her because you want somebody to yammer about Josh to all the time. Because whenever you say Josh's name to me, you have to give me $5. By the way, you owe me $300. And I love that she says that, and Rebecca opens her wallet and begins actually paying her, and then says his name like 3 more times. So she hands over all of her money. We get the opening credits. I can't be held responsible for my actions. So good. I love this opening so much. And then we get to go to the School of Law. And Paula is sitting here with Rebecca. Rebecca has packed her a little lunch and has given her an extra juice box, but then immediately asks for the juice box back. And as she leaves, this dude behind Paula pipes up and says something about how kids are so selfish. And Paula says, well, wait, no. Oh, no, that wasn't my daughter. That was my best friend. And he's like, really? Because she just kind of had that me vibe. And this really gets to Paula somehow. And she says something like, I mean, yeah, I guess she can be a little bit self-absorbed, and it would be really, really cool if I could actually talk to her about this major fucking life event that I just had, my abortion, and then realizes that she just blurted that shit out and turns to him and is sort of trying to do damage control and is like, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said that. And he says, my wife killed herself like 3 months ago, I think he says. Fairly recently, really. And it's a really weird moment of both of them like blurting too much out, but that being the exact thing that sort of brings them together. This is one of those things where it could work 9 months ago. Sorry. It's the kind of thing that could go either way. Have you guys met people like this? Oftentimes you'll meet them, especially at bars, because I think drinking makes people a little bit more susceptible to this. But they will just blurt out really personal shit and you just don't know how to react to it. And I am not somebody who tends to like open up to people that I don't know super well. I say that doing this podcast where I open up all the time, but it's different when you're not in the room with me. And a lot of times I find that to be like a turnoff, like an indicator that somebody isn't super stable, and I sort of back away from it. And I like the fact that this dude decides to like take a bit of a risk here and just jump in on that. And, you know, she tells her that he understands not being honest with somebody, even though you love them, because I still haven't told my daughters the truth about what actually happened. And then says, I told them that their mom went to a mom farm upstate where moms get to run around all day. And she's really tickled by this and seems to be brightened by the fact that not only is he able to like be legit with her, but like see some humor, like make a dark joke about it. You know, that's exactly her jam. And, they wind up hitting it off and like becoming buds for the rest of the episode. And I'm 100% here for this. Like, this guy is great. I really, really like him. Erica says in the comments, I am that person. Yeah, my therapist wanted me to come here. I have panic attacks in crowds. I want to go home and hug my cats. Now, see, Erica, that isn't quite what I mean. That I honestly would be like, oh, okay. Somebody who deals with panic attacks. I can relate to that. That's fine. I am talking about the person who, I'm thinking about a specific person and the meetup that I had with them. Like I had just met this person and she just like completely blurted out about how, her brother was like a coke dealer and she was here to get away from him because he like something really not like illegal, one, super personal, two, and also like indicating what a completely messy life she had, like really like high drama Jerry Springer type of thing. And just it's the kind of thing that you don't know how to respond to that because your immediate instinct is, oh honey, no. But you know you can't say that because this person is behaving as if this is a totally normal thing. And what a drag, am I right? And like with this tone that sort of seems to be like, well, you get it. And I'm like, no, I really don't get it. That's crazy. What are you talking about? And I think that's really what it is when it's something that's like so heightened and a person behaves as if, well, this is just a normal conversation to have. And I'm always just like, I don't know what to say to you right now. Like, what are you talking about? So we go to Rebecca popping up at Valencia's house, and Valencia, there is this amazing running joke throughout all of her interactions with Valencia until like almost the end of the episode where she talks about lice and Susie Reynolds comes up, and this keeps being brought up. The only person I knew with lice was Susie Reynolds in 3rd grade, and she got her clothes out of the dumpster. And then later on, she says something about, you know, Susie Reynolds and getting her food out of the garbage. And Rebecca's like, is Susie Reynolds okay? And she says she's fine. She's a state senator. And later, when they actually get to the Mesa, she says, oh my God, this reminds me of the tent city that Susie used to live in. And she looks at her and is like, no, seriously, is Susie okay? And Valencia says she just passed a homeless reform bill. And Rebecca just goes, oh, that's so beautiful. And it's just like, it's one of those small jokes, but there is nothing quite like a joke that gets to come back within an episode. There are within one episode, like jokes that recur. And then there's the jokes that recur over the course of many seasons. They are like my lifeblood. They're everything that I love about comedy, is when you're able to bring something back over and over again. And it's not old. Now it feels familiar and like you're part of the joke, even though all you're doing is just like watching it happen. You're not part of it, really. Oh, I love it. It's the Susie Reynolds thing is the best. So Rebecca finally convinces her, like, well, at this point, she doesn't really. She's trying to explain to Valencia about the two of them both being rejected by Josh. And Valencia says, I ended the relationship. I made a choice. We are not in the same boat. Later on, Valencia is finally like, okay, I may have ended the relationship, but it was over already. And that was pretty much his decision. So I do feel rejected despite everything. That is like the reality of the situation, and it sucks. And I like the fact that she just eventually comes to that, because it's one thing to say, you know, because we get the little like previously on before this episode starts. And she says something to Josh about how, you know, I really had thought that Rebecca was our problem, but it turns out that she's not. And that's the case whenever you have a person that it feels like is sort of like infringing on your relationship. It's easy to see the other person as the issue, or it's easy to see your partners like either being ignorant and unaware of the fact that they're being flirted with, or like maybe encouraging it because they like the attention as like the problem. And it's like, this is a symptom of a greater problem, that your partner is either unsatisfied or unwilling to commit in the way that you want them to. And the two of you don't see eye to eye on what it means to be committed to each other. And that's where Valencia finally came out. She just realized that like Josh clearly hasn't been 100% in this with me for a while now. He asked me to move in with him, but when it came to anything beyond that, and even moving in, it was like I kind of had to like push him. And it's been so long that we've been together now that if he's not sure by now, I don't know what else can be done. And I feel bad for her, because there really is a sense of having spent so much time on a person trying to make things work, or to, this is especially the case with women. We are often like socialized to believe that it's our responsibility to make men better. So we'll be dating a dude who's like maybe not very ambitious, doesn't work very hard, or is like, you know, just has whatever kind of flaws that lead to them being kind of like an underachiever in some way. And that comes with this like implicit understanding in society that we as a woman are dating the guy and going to eventually convince him to do better. And it's such garbage. You know, women have to be on 100% in order to be considered worthy of a relationship. But a guy can be at 60%, 40% even, and still be considered worthy of a relationship, and that women should really be a little bit more understanding and more patient and give him more time to figure things out. And this leads to a lot of women staying with guys for too long because they are convinced that they haven't figured out the right way to change their partner. They don't think about it as like, maybe I shouldn't be with somebody that I really want to change this much. They think of it as, if I were better, I would have convinced them by now to behave like an adult. I would have motivated them enough to want to do better. Instead, all I feel like I'm doing is constantly nagging at them. And it's a really awful place to be, where you are taking responsibility not only for your own success, but your partner's success. And they don't seem to be taking responsibility at all. So Valencia has spent the better part of a decade with this guy who's a giant child. I mean, let's be honest. Josh is a disaster. I don't know where he's staying right now. Do we find out? Is he staying with his mom? He's like, you know, he has an appeal. I get why both of them like him. He's a good-hearted person who is like weirdly wholesome in a lot of ways, but he's extremely selfish. It obviously was very prepared to take advantage of Rebecca, and just sort of preoccupied with like small details of the trappings of what it looks like to be an adult, and not really thinking about the future in a real way. He's a very in the moment kind of guy. And, you know, we have a song with him later about like, well, if I don't go to the gym enough, how will I ever be a good father? And I'm just really like, the idea of Josh Chan having kids is such a disaster to me. Like, do I think he would be a good father? I mean, it depends on what your definition of that is. I think he would be a fun father for the kids. I think whoever married him and had children with him would be like, I want to kill you frequently. So, you know, it's one of those things. But anyway, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. I'm trying to think of the way that Valencia sees this and how much time she spent and how much hope she had that he would like eventually, you know, she's pushing him to put in more hours so that he can get promoted at Aloha, right? Rather than supporting him in doing this like this summer camp thing. And in the episode, it's really frustrating because what we see that what Josh is doing is genuinely coming from a good place in his heart and is genuinely affecting the lives of kids, and I think has an overall positive outcome. But when you're Valencia and you are trying to build a home and future with a partner, and they don't seem interested in getting to a point of stability in their lives where you could do that, where you could have children and not worry about finances, I can understand her perspective a little bit better. I still think that she should be more respectful of what his passion is and working with these kids and whatnot. Like she definitely comes across poorly in that episode. But when you step back and look at the facts of the matter, it seems like she's working as like the yoga instructor who just opened up her own place because of Rebecca, I guess, and probably isn't making like huge money. And Josh is working at this sort of entry level like sales position. Not an awesome situation. I can kind of get where she's coming from. So anyway, we go to Josh at Aloha, and he's like in 6 hours before his shift even starts. And we get this amazing thing where his boss is basically like, dude, first of all, what are you doing here? Second of all, I understand you're a serial monogamist. I really get how hard it can be to be alone, but you can do it. You'll be okay. You shouldn't be just hanging around at work all day, dude. Come on. And as somebody, I am definitely a serial monogamist. I mean, you don't have to look far back in my dating history to see I have really had only like 4 serious relationships in my life, all of them spanning at least like 4 years. And I jumped from one almost directly into another every time. Not awesome. Not super healthy. And my issue isn't even the fear of being alone. My issue is always, again, a need for validation. And nothing gives you validation like dating. And I say this as somebody who has really been privileged in that I have had excellent luck dating, and always have been able to like just reap compliments and whatnot. It's, I know, a very different beast for a lot of people, but for me, it worked out. And I got that, like, also being in a new, fresh relationship gives you validation because you're with somebody who's still trying to impress you, and you are still trying to impress them. So you do more and put more effort in all the time. And I got sort of hooked on that like fresh excitement of a new relationship. And when that goes away, I have trouble. And the thing with Josh, we see here, is that he, as I said before, is such an in the moment guy that when he is left alone to just think, it starts to spiral out of control. So we get this like song of him singing about how he doesn't mind being solo. He doesn't mind being alone with his thoughts. And then he starts like spiraling as he's talking. I'm totally fine alone with my thoughts. Check it. Life is so sweet when you take it light. Nothing can go wrong with the sun when the sun is bright. That reminds me that I barely passed lifeguard school. That's why that kid almost died in that pool. That's a bad thought. And so this is a very like kind of Jack, what's his face? I can't remember the name of the guy that Jack something that did all the acoustic like pool party songs. This is how I think of them. The music that you put on when you're Jack Johnson. Thank you, Erica. He always does the music that people play at summer pool parties. And I was watching this with Owen and he started cracking up and said, I think this is the most I've ever liked Josh, because this is very much how Owen is. I am like this as well. Don't get me wrong. But it's funny because when you're watching Josh do it, all of the thoughts that he has are about weird, like specific, silly, like honestly silly kind of things a lot of the time that sort of then expand into more serious things, but start from a beginning that you're just like, what, dude? And for me, I'm always like thinking in to-do lists. So my not being alone with my thoughts is more, mine goes more like, all right, well, I really need to do my editing and I probably should put some dishes in the dishwasher. The dishwasher's already full. I'm going to have to empty the dishwasher. I think those pots are in there. Those pots need to go in that cabinet, but I think I put the paper towels in that cabinet. There's not going to be room for all of that. I should probably clean the cabinets out. I need to clean the cabinets out in the kitchen. I need to clean the hall cabinet out. There's all this cat food and oh my God, I need to buy cat food. And that's how it goes. I am like just in task. And I get really overwhelmed and then I get like paralyzed with, I don't know what to do first because I just thought of 40 things that I should do. And with Josh, he has these weird thoughts. Yeah, I was about to mention that, Erica, if he says, I used to like guacamole, then I suddenly stopped liking guacamole. If it worked on guacamole, it could work on my mom. What happens if I stop liking my mom? Like, that is such a weird thought to me that I couldn't really relate to exactly what was happening here, but Owen apparently definitely could. So it's interesting how like we all have brains that are just going a lot of the time, but they'll be really different in the way that's set up and the way that you think about things. Megan says, I think this is why I listen to so many podcasts. Exactly. I mean, that's a major thing, both with Brendan and Owen, is that they will constantly have something on in their ears. And that has recently become like one of the few ways that Owen can fall asleep. His mind races when he's trying to fall asleep. So he'll put on something that he's listened to a million times so that he isn't focused on it. But that keeps his brain from going into overtime and allows him to fall asleep, and he sleeps better because he isn't just like going to bed with this like, mind full of, oh shit, anxiety. And it's funny because I always just kind of thought that if you listen to stuff as you fall asleep, you're going to have less good quality sleep, and it seems to not be the case for him. It seems to work, but eventually you are going to have to face these like, these recurring thoughts. It will come to a head eventually. You can put it off. You can push it down. You can try and like distract yourself, but it's going to still be there and you're going to have to fucking at some point, it's just, I should also mention that I love that every time Josh is thinking about stuff, what pops up to sort of, describe in the thought bubbles is a weirdly childish, like, crayon drawing of whatever it is he's talking about. Listen, the show knows that Josh is a kid. So speaking of Josh, let's talk about White Josh, because he goes to the office to see Daryl again. And Rebecca is teasing him about the fact that he's actually, like, wearing a button-up shirt and whatnot. She tells him, we know why you're here, because you and Daryl are in love. And he says, oh, we don't say that to each other, actually. I haven't met his daughter yet. And she zeroes in on seeing this as an insecurity. I didn't really hear that when he said it. I thought he was saying something like, we haven't taken it to that step. But when I think about it, when he specifically says, I haven't met his daughter yet, it sounds like something that he's been thinking about, you know? So this is when Daryl comes out with his fucking spandex athletic pants and talks about the electric mesa, which Rebecca zeroes in on and realizes could be like the perfect solution to her problem with Valencia. So she goes to see Valencia and lies about going to Dairy Queen and gets her to come to the electric mesa. I love how fucking goofy this little, like, festival is, because obviously they don't have the budget to make a really big event, and they have to do the best with what they've got. I suspect that there is a lot of use of, like, props and scenery from some of the different videos that they have done in this, used in the background. But there's also, like, you know, a lot of rave clothes and, like, you know, that scene gear sort of thing. A lot of outfits from, like, Dolls Kill. Valencia isn't super excited about this. Apparently she agreed on the way to do this, but she is, once she sees the place, kind of like, oh man, this sucks. Come on, really? And Rebecca convinces her, and Valencia just says, you know, I guess I just honestly don't even really have anything else to do. So they go set up a tent, and we get to see, I mean, I would never go to something like this, because when I would hear about it, I would be just like, that does not sound like my jam at all. However, when I see it, part of me is like, this looks great. I know it's goofy, but I think I would have a good time. It's a shame that I wouldn't, like, put myself out there and just give it a shot, you know? And I love that everybody is in these outfits. But meanwhile, Rebecca's just in, like, this sort of, like, button up, like, you know, she's in a much more straight-laced outfit. And Valencia is wearing, like, pajama pants and Uggs. The two of them are not fitting in on this scene at all. So Rebecca tries to bond about Josh here. It doesn't really work out. They go into this, like, sensory bath a little bit later, and she keeps attempting to talk to Valencia, and finally Valencia, like, gets the teacher to yell at her. And at this point, the music winds up going out, and it results in Josh getting called in to fix it. We'll come back to that later. Let's go over to Paula. I've forgotten the name of her classmate. Naveen? Is it Naveen? He is Sunil. Thank you. Who am I thinking of? Naveen. I think that was Doctor Who. But the two of them are trying to keep up and take notes in class, and they can't manage to, like, Naveen is the prince from Princess and the Frog. I never saw that, but noted. Wrong. They can't keep up. And this is definitely, like, a real issue. Those of you who have been in classes know, trying to take notes, it's one of those things that for me never really works. If I if I'm being taught something out of a book, I tend to not take notes. I absorb much better by listening than I do by writing down, provided that I'm actually listening the way I'm meant to listen. And this moment, they see this kid that's using like basically a transcription app, and it's just recording what the teacher's saying right into notes, which again, I don't know how effective that is. Like, I could really see using that as a crutch and having that be recording, and then you are just doing fucking whatever, playing WoW or something, and ignoring it because you think, okay, I can go back later and read the transcript that this thing recorded for me, no problem. Meanwhile, it doesn't get everything right, and you wind up like kind of confused and mixed up. But nevertheless, they really want to get in on this software, and she asks the kid what the app is, and he says Nunya, and she says the app is called Nunya, and he says Nunya business, bitch. And I love both her and Sunil just pull back going with their hand to their chest. Like, it's the best. I love it. And this results in the two of them wanting to get back at this kid later on. They're thinking about like how he wouldn't help them. I'm like thinking to myself, it would be really easy, guys, to just Google like transcribing notes, you know, like something like app. But this is when Sunil comes up with the idea of a heist, basically. And he asks her if she has any caper clothes. And I love this. When he asks her, she gets so excited. And she says, I gave up skulking for Rebecca, but this is skulking for me. And they wind up busting into this kid's room and stealing the app off of his computer. And it's a real bonding experience because like Paula is the one that always does the things. But guys, I love the fact that they're in the middle of this like room in the middle of the day, and it's not, they're in like black turtlenecks with like black beanies on, like, oh my God. So she can't do it. And he comes and sits down and manages to do something with like the code. And Paula is super impressed because he managed to really bring something to this. Paula has been in these capers the one who does most of the actual work. And so I think it's a novel experience for her to be watching this like dude take care of business, you know, like realizing maybe she didn't even need to be here for this. And I love it. She says, remind me to get you a friendship bracelet. And they pop out of there. And later on, they actually do have friendship bracelets on, and Rebecca notices and mentions it, and it's just precious. But we'll get to that final scene later. So let's talk about White Josh and Daryl. So it turns out White Josh had another older boyfriend. And then it turns out that he had like several older boyfriends. And Daryl gets pretty upset over this. He feels like he's just part of a fetish that Josh has. And that it means he's not special. It's not, Josh isn't like dating him because he's so great that age doesn't matter. He's dating him because age is specifically a thing that he kind of goes for. And Josh gets pretty defensive of this and says, I have a type, but that doesn't mean that you're a fetish. That's not the same thing. And that is a really fine line. That's a tough thing to really even like quantify or be able to explain adequately. It was a weird thing. Like, you know, when I was with Brendan, I found out that he tended to go for really forceful women with dark curly hair specifically. And both his mother and sister have dark curly hair and are also a little on the heavier side. And I mentioned that to him once. We had been married by that point, where I just said, well, you definitely go for people that kind of look like your sister and your mom. And he stopped dead and looked at me and was like, what? And I was like, yeah, have you not noticed that? When I'm sitting with your mom and your sister, we look like the ones that are related, not you. And he realized I was right. And I think he was pretty shook about it. Like, it just, and that's the thing about dating. Psychology is really fucking complicated. And for me, I go for dudes who are in many ways the polar opposite of my father. But there is one thing that will attract me, and that is being a fucking workaholic. Every guy I've ever dated has been a workaholic, because because that's something that I value. And if I see it in somebody else, I think, oh, good, they get it. Doesn't really wind up being great a lot of the time. But we get drawn to things that are familiar to us, that give us a sense of comfort or stability that, might not actually be there, but it makes it feel that way. Translating that to a fetish, I don't know. And especially when it's an appearance-based thing, and when there's a sense of it being I'm sure Daryl's thinking do you have daddy issues or something? He doesn't actually say that, but there's a bit of subtext there. And eventually Josh convinces him that he's for real about this relationship by sharing his own insecurity, where he tells Daryl, I've been worried that you're not serious about this relationship or me, because you might be in the midst of a midlife crisis, and I'm just the boy toy that you're having fun with right now. And you don't actually want this, And it's an interesting moment that I really like, because it feels like what you would think if you were looking at the two of them together, right? If you were seeing Daryl and Josh out, Josh is so out of Daryl's league that I would definitely be like, well, Daryl must be rich. That's my assumption. And is that an unfair assumption to make? 100%, but there it is. And that's clearly what White Josh is worried is happening, is that he's just a fun introductory relationship to dating the same gender. And this is the first time that Daryl's ever done it. And it's he's having fun and experimenting, but he's not really serious about him as a person. And Daryl is startled by this. And when Josh explains, you haven't even let me meet Madison yet. The reason that he didn't was because he was worried about scaring Josh off, because kids are a big deal, and he's not wrong. I mean, I've got to be honest. If I were out there dating and I met somebody and it turned out they had a kid, I don't think that I would be able to make that work. It's just, kids are so not a part of what I want for my future, that having them already packaged into the deal, and it's not even my kid. I mean, I don't think so. So I understand very much why Daryl was just I'm not going to bring this up. Josh is young and kids are a responsibility, and they can kind of be a drag sometimes. I don't want to do this. But I think it means a lot to him realizing that Josh is serious enough that something that is a responsibility is not scaring him away. If anything, he's been low-key waiting for the moment, and it's never happened. So it's a really sweet, I just ship the two of them so hard. I really, really do. Could I just say that? And I'm just so glad that it seems like this is going to be a permanent relationship, or at least a longer term relationship. I wasn't sure, but it looks that way. So they wind up working it out, and eventually Josh goes and meets, White Josh goes and meets Daryl's daughter. And it's a really cute moment, and she's totally cool with the fact that her dad has a boyfriend, even though that this is a new thing. She's not fazed by it at all. And I just really enjoyed it. It made me really happy, the two of them. So let's go back to the Mesa. Valencia is not having a good time. The music cuts out, and as far as she is concerned, that means that the whole event is just trash now. So they go, Rebecca convinces her to stay by being like, aren't you thirsty? Why don't we get a drink? And they go over to this booth called High Tea. And the woman's wearing like a Union Jack bathing suit top. And Rebecca thinks that the high tea is just like, oh, a cute little like English joke. Not thinking about high tea. And it turns out that there is a drug in this that's called Triceratops. Apparently they aren't charged for this, whatever this is. And the woman doesn't explain to them what it is, which really, like, you know, I could see at a festival like this, where it seems very like DIY and people are not being particularly regulated, that maybe somebody would just set up and not say anything. But I really have a hard time believing that you would just let people come up and grab a cup and chug it down and not explain. I mean, there's no signs or anything to indicate this, you know? And the girl says, 2 cups, you guys must really have a high tolerance. And Rebecca says, what? And she explains that there's a hallucinogen, 3 tops, metacetyltricholorocaine, good God, mixitoxycloxy. And they don't know what the hell she's talking about. Rebecca finally just says, did we just drink drugs? And the girl says, yup. And her and Valencia go back to the little tent that they set up, and they wind up having a trip. And they each have a very similar ballet-themed Triceratops trip. And Valencia is this beautiful ballerina, and Josh is the Triceratops. And I love that there's a slow version of I'm the villain in my own story playing. And, you know, when Josh first comes out, he's the beautiful prince, but he winds up turning into the Triceratops. I am so curious about their backgrounds in dance because, like, they're pretty good at ballet. You know, this is a very classical thing. It's not easy to pull off, but it is a foundational dance that you have to learn when you get into this. And this is, when we go into Rebecca's mind, it's amazing. It seems like she has just figured out that, like, and I mean, she being Rachel Bloom is like, yeah, I'm not a ballerina. I'm not going to pretend to be a ballerina. I'm the goofy one, and I'm going to be wearing the exact same clothes that I'm wearing at this festival, even in this trip. Josh turns up dancing circles around her, and she gets very irritated, turns into a Triceratops, and then begins to, like, attack him. So this is like, we cut between the difference in the 2 dances. Josh, like, you know, dancing away from the killer Triceratops, and Valencia trying so hard to make things work with the Triceratops before finally killing it. And I love how the 2 of them, like, even the color schemes in their dances are totally different. It's just great how they're both ballet themed, but they're so completely, like, just the tones could not be more different. One of them is like a romantic tragedy, and the other one is this, like, kind of what's the word I want? Like this grotesque sort of, like, it feels like a sequence out of Twin Peaks or something. And in the end, Rebecca eats his heart, takes a huge bite out of it. It looks so gross, you guys. Oh my God, I hate it. And so we see the 2 of them kind of like rolling around, having like reactions to this drug. And Valencia sits up and just says, oh my God, I am so sad. I am so sad about Josh. And Rebecca sits up and says, I want to kill him. And I love this because that is a thing that you will have happen where you feel really sad and then you like, it begins to transform and you just get so angry. And I feel that eventually Valencia gets to the angry with Rebecca, but she still wasn't acknowledging that she was even sad at first. So we needed to do that. And, Erica is saying, I'm putting together a YouTube playlist of the season's songs, spoiler free. Do you want the drug ballet included in it? No. Thank you though. But no. Okay. So at this point they start talking over what happened, and Valencia admits that she broke up with him, but the truth is he had left me emotionally long before. And I killed the relationship because I had to. And the moment that she says, I never want to talk about Josh Chan, I never want to see him again, he fucking turns up to repair the sound system. And I love it. Rebecca's like, are we still tripping? Is that really him? What should we do? And Valencia says, we're not going to do anything. We're going to hide till he leaves. And Rebecca says, no, you know what? We always let him off the hook. Fuck that. We are going to eat his heart. And Valencia starts to be like, I don't know. And Rebecca yells at her, lean in, V. You woke up from that trip sobbing. You just said it yourself. You're scared. He scares you. Look at right now. You're trembling like a dog on July 4th. She has to explain what that means. Don't give him that power. So Josh goes and fixes the sound system. And what kind of winds up convincing Valencia is when he walks out of the tent, everybody at the festival has started cheering for him because he, is the hero of the hour. And so they're watching him get accolades yet again from everybody, and they're disgusted. And this is when Rebecca comes up with her idea. She says, all right, you know what we're going to do? I got an idea. And they go and pee on his equipment, and it's amazing. It's such a weird thing to do. And Josh catches them and is basically like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And they have this like moment of just ganging up on him and being like, what the fuck is your problem, dude? You totally, Valencia says something about how she can't believe that he took advantage of Rebecca the way that he did, living, like basically moving in and not giving her any sort of commitment or treating her well. And Rebecca starts yelling about how she gave you the best years of her life, and look at how you repaid her by hooking up with another woman. And he says, which was you, and thinks that that's really going to matter, but they've like passed that point now. And I love when Valencia says, like, you repaid her by sleeping with her, sleeping on her couch for free, and then breaking her heart. And Rebecca looks at her, oh my God, you did listen to me in the car. Like, they really do bond here. And it's so great. Josh, at this point, he had been thinking about, like, being the serial monogamist. But when he goes and talks to like the Sherpa dude later, he says, wow, this really gave me perspective on why I'm happy to be single. Women are complicated and hard to understand. But then as he's loading this equipment up, this girl shows up. And she's in this like dreamy little mini dress. She's the girl that I remember from Pitch Perfect, I think. And he continually thinks about her throughout the rest of this episode, and then eventually decides to call / maybe text her eventually. And I really like, I don't know what we're doing here with a new, girl added into the equation, but I feel like this is going to go badly, but we'll see. So then we have the scene at the end where Heather and Valencia are hanging out. Heather says, I knew I liked you. You're basic, but in an enjoyable way. And that's exactly it. That's how I felt about Valencia from the start. As much as she has been awful at times, I still liked her. There was still something that I was just kind of like, and maybe it is the hero worship thing where you're like, oh, you're just like, you're kind of what I want to be in a lot of ways. But regardless, I still wanted her to be friends with Rebecca. And I love that they managed to do that. They managed to make her like mean and snotty and fat shamey, but also I still liked her, which is a very tricky thing to fucking do. And I can't help but think that's got to be a lot. The actress as well as the script, But yeah, they are all having this like bond session, and they are talking about like Roxanne Gay and the reclaiming of the word bitch and all of this. And it's really amazing. At this moment, Paula walks in with her new friend and she spots Rebecca. And there's this sadness here between them of realizing that maybe they're beginning to grow apart and that maybe their friendship isn't as tight as it was just several episodes ago. And it's a weird thing when you see, like, they didn't split up, but Paula hasn't told Rebecca what's been going on with her. And like, look, Rebecca is a very me person, definitely. But Paula has had chances and she didn't tell her. She chose in the moment when Rebecca comes to her house and sits on her bed and asks, no, seriously, what's going on? She puts Rebecca off and says, I had a thing, I figured it out, but I'm so happy to see you. What's going on with you? And the thing is, when you're a me person and you try and reach out a little and that person pushes you away and tries to turn it around on you, it works. This is me and Rashawn. Rashawn, I'll ask her what's going on with her because I can hear she's down. I can tell something happened. I'll ask her and she like kind of wants to talk about it, but like not really, but she does. And she'll be like, oh, whatever. We just had a stupid fight. It's fine. And then she'll be like, so what's going on with the such and such? And she'll bring up something very specific that she knows I have shit to say about. And it works. And then I'll like realize, oh, I fell for it. I fucking fell for it. And then I have to back up and be like, no. What's going on with you? Back to this. And it's a really, Paula, it goes two ways. And she, as much as I do think that Rebecca needs to learn to be a more giving friend, I also think Paula needs to learn to not always be the giver. She needs to learn to be able to take from friends, and she's not good at that. So it ends on kind of a melancholy note of them looking at one another from across this like patio area, each with their new friends and their new phases of life. And it's just sort of different, and I'm curious how this is going to pan out. So yeah, guys, I'm going to take a look real quick and see if the next episode, I can't remember if the next one is a spoil me or not, but let's see. What's today? The 24th? The next one is the 31st, season 2, episode 6. No, it is not. That's a regular recording. So I will be seeing you all again soon then. I'm very excited with the next episode. Thank you again so much to Megan for commissioning this one. And yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next. Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.